Are you in the mood for something healing? How about the uplifting new play, The Art of Care? It celebrates how we care for and are cared for by others. Exactly the kind of show I need in my life this time of year. Mosaic Theater presents The Art of Care, October 31st through November 24th at the Atlas Performing Arts Center. Get tickets at mosaictheater.org and come celebrate our shared humanity.
Today on CityCast DC, we are talking about the crisis at the Washington Post, the joy around the Washington Commanders, and a sneaky new technology that aims to bust line cutters at DCA. I'm here with CityCast's Priyanka Tilve and Julia Karen. Today is Friday, November 1st. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC is talking about. Hey, Priyanka.
Hi.
Hey, Julia.
Hey, Mike.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you too.
So will either of you guys be endorsing a presidential candidate today?
No.
No, I have voted, though. So there you go, sports fans.
Well, that puts you in very good company.
Does it, though?
Well, so as people may have heard, we've talked about it already on the pod, the Post a week ago, quite surprisingly and abruptly announced it was not going to be endorsing a presidential candidate. An endorsement of Kamala Harris had already been written, but it was not run. And this was on the say-so, apparently, of Jeff Bezos, the Post's owner, since 2013. And this has caused a huge blowback. I mean, the basics of it are that people believe that Bezos did this because he is afraid of angering Donald Trump. And he is afraid that Donald Trump will improperly, unethically, horribly, whatever word you want to use the power of the federal government if he gets elected to punish Bezos's companies. Not the Post per se, but like Amazon, Blue Origin, all these other entities that do a whole lot of business with the federal government.
Yeah, and I mean, when we talk about blowback, like over the weekend, last weekend, after the announcement came out that they weren't going to endorse, the numbers were like 1,000 people, maybe 2,000 people. Earlier this week, the number that dropped was 250,000 subscribers canceled their subscriptions.
And this is real money.
Blew my mind. That's what did they say, 10%?
10% of their total readership.
Of their digital subscribers.
Digital subscribers. Now, to be fair, that tally was taken. Some people have annual subscriptions, so it doesn't kick in until later, right? So that number could actually be higher. It's kind of unclear, but still, 250K is a lot.
But that's also, people subscribe to things. I know I do. And then you just sort of let it roll and you forget about it. And I think, so acquisitions of subscribers is like the most expensive thing in subscription media. The point is this could take real money out of their pockets. The staff of the Post, most of whom appear to be really, really, really upset about this, are like, please, folks, this is like canceling your subscription is the worst thing to do because it actually hurts our ability to engage in news gathering. That's the, often not sexy, often slow, often not profitable part of media. So, so this is happening and leaves people particularly people who live in DC or the DC area, worried about the ability of this news organization to continue to do sort of essential work, maybe even away from American politics, but, covering local crime and politics and public affairs and so on. So that's sort of, one crisis. Like, what does this do to the thing? The other is like their reputation. Like the thing with these plutocrats who buy up media is they were seen as saviors because they could absorb the losses that you couldn't absorb if your money only came from media. But it turns out they have vulnerabilities that can be exploited in a way you couldn't exploit the vulnerabilities of just a ownership that was purely in the media business. So, an unscrupulous leader could say, well, we're going to mess with your federal contracts, which is apparently what the worry is here. So that leaves people wondering, like, is this thing ethical? Is this thing straight up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen billionaires getting very engaged in this election. Elon Musk, obviously, as well, has been very engaged in supporting Trump. And I think it's one thing when it's a company like that, but when it's a company that's meant to be doing a public service like the Post or just news organizations in general, it just calls into question, once again, the validity of our democracy.
Is there some sort of merit to say, like, actually, should papers even be endorsing in the first place?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I know the LA Times also did not endorse, but the New York Times is dunking on both of these papers because they're like, look at us, we're the New York Times. We speak truth to power. We're willing to endorse. But meanwhile, should newspapers of record actually be doing this in the first place?
But Julia, that would be a really interesting conversation to have a year before an election or 6 months before an election.
Absolutely.
What I think people reacted to here, and the exact same thing happened in Los Angeles, is that this appeared to be a last minute decision based on, a moment in the polls where Trump looks good, sort of what the theorists call anticipatory compliance with an autocrat. One, I don't think the Post's endorsement would have been of a Democrat, would have been a nuanced, thoughtful piece of writing. I don't think that would have swayed anyone's mind. The Post,
which Bezos said too. In
Yes.
his defense, he published an op-ed defending this decision, and he said presidential endorsements do nothing to tip the scales of an election. No undecided voters in Pennsylvania are going to say, "I'm going with newspaper A's endorsement." None. What presidential endorsements actually do is create a perception of bias, a perception of non-independence. I honestly do kind of agree with that take, but again, it's not a take that you put out 11 days before an election after your editorial board has already written up their endorsement, because it seems like a conflict of interest, and it probably is.
So you're saying if they had done this 6 months ago maybe, or even a year ago, that they made an announcement hey, we're not going to endorse, would you be okay with that?
Yeah, you could have brought out some professor from Columbia Journalism School, and they would have said, a fancier version of what you guys and we've all just said. And, for hallowed reasons, we're going to stop this, blah, blah, blah. And it could have been done for the exact same cowardly motives, but they would have completely gotten away with it. It was the 11th hour, oh, crap, Trump's going to win, let's not make him mad thing that really caused the pain here. Priyanka was quoting from Jeff Bezos's essay that he published in the Post that sort of justified this and sort of high-minded, we need to regain the public trust kind of grounds. And what annoyed me about that is, it's absolutely true. I mean, obviously levels of trust in media across the country are low. And particularly since you don't read it in a physical paper form anymore, people can't tell the difference between this is the opinion section where opinion's allowed and the rest is the straight news section. It used to be they would be literally on different pages, but the internet, everything looks the same. So I get all that. What I think that essay didn't appreciate is the other loss of trust that has happened here, which is the idea of a self-interested owner who's got something to lose, swooping in at the 11th hour and affecting the product in the name of, allegedly, his own interests. So it's almost like the only legitimate form of distrust is the sort of Trumpy form where it's you all are a bunch of liberals trying to pull one over on us. But the apparently 250,000 people who have lost trust for this other reason, that was sort of dismissed. That loss of trust wasn't really addressed. And that loss of trust comes from, I think, that they adopted this whole democracy dies in darkness kind of sales pitch. We are a paper that stands for democracy. And once you do that, boy, there's going to be a pretty swift backlash the minute you appear to be a sellout. The irony, though, is the Post, has continued to do local endorsements, and including Senate in Maryland and so on. Initiative 83, they're for it in DC. These are actually very useful because most people are much more ignorant of local elections than the national election. But look, I think as a Washingtonian and as a podcast that focuses on local news and events, I think the thing for us to watch and the danger for us is if this cancellation boom leads to serious budget cuts at the Post, they could wind up hitting, an already shrunken amount of local coverage. And
yeah,
then,
that's what I was going to say. I think what we've seen in the last few years is as the Post gets squeezed, the Metro section is the one that gets hit the most.
which stands to reason. It's Metro news, but by definition only of interest to a 6 million person metro area is going to be less profitable. The other thing that I worry about, and I've sort of been through this before at a previous job, is when you have a super plutocrat owner who buys a media organization, there's a kind of predictable life cycle, right? They get really excited, they announce all these changes, they fire the leadership, install their own people, they get a shiny new newsroom, but eventually they get kind of sick of it. And they get sick of it because, it's a pain in the butt to run a news organization, right? Your friends get mad at you about stuff that run in there. It's the staff are hard to boss around. It can be frustrating. And is this a sign, is what's really going on here, that Bezos, who was supposed to become this big DC player. He bought a big house. He was going to be the guy who threw lots of parties. He hasn't really been seen much around town. That house that he bought, the biggest house in DC, is dark most of the time. Is he just sick of it? And does that mean he's going to get out? And if he does, what does that do to our, essential local publication? And that's the thing that like really scares, besides the democracy and citizenship stuff, that's the thing that really scares me as like a self-interested local yokel.
Like if he disappears, if he decides to plot, that there's no one else who's going to step in.
Right. And he's been a pretty good owner, right? He's funded the thing. He's taken, I'm sure, enormous losses. The metro section hasn't grown compared to the way some of the other stuff has grown since he bought it, but it also stopped shrinking more or less. Well, maybe it'll shrink a little.
Well, yeah, it did shrink a little.
But given the terrible state of local news around the country, that would be a fairly frightening prospect, that uncertainty.
Yeah, I think any sort of unknown in this field is harrowing. And it just kind of, once again, brings up the importance of supporting your local news organizations. Right now, there's a lot of fear around this. If you appreciate what any of the local news organizations that you support or pay attention to are doing, support them, including us. We would love to have you as a member.
Oh, she snuck it in there.
Yeah, I have to sneak it in there. If you want to subscribe, if you want to become a member, go to membership.citycast.fm. You'll get ad-free listening, but more importantly, you get to support us and make sure that we stick around for years to come and continue providing you with the local journalism that you want and love.
But listen, here's my endorsement, official, from me. Don't drop the posts. It'll just wind up giving the reporters who work really hard less resources to do stuff that's actually really important to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the key here is support all of the local journalists that you appreciate, that provide value, provide you with a service.
Yeah, you can endorse multiple news sources. That's allowed.
I hereby endorse that sentiment.
Same.
So I went to school in Virginia, and the trip of the year was the trip to Luray Caverns. It was the one trip you absolutely did not want to miss. And in fact, the school would mildly threaten us into good behavior using that trip to Luray Caverns as a reward. And I distinctly recall a teacher telling me that if I got one more detention, I wouldn't be going to Luray Caverns. And guess what? I did not get another detention because I was not about to miss that trip. I have continued to go to Luray Caverns every year as an adult, and I'm happy to report it still delights. Luray Caverns has so many jaw-dropping marvels, you truly have to see it to believe it. And make sure you look out for my personal favorite, Dream Lake. Plan the perfect holiday adventure your whole family will love at LurayCaverns.com.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. I want to take a moment to shout out my cat, Pistachio. You are so good. Thank you for always crawling onto my lap and purring whenever I'm stressed. This time of year, I am thinking a lot about gratitude. And while we might always remember to thank our loved ones or our pets, there's one person we often forget to thank: ourselves. And one way to make space for you and your feelings is through therapy, because sometimes cuddling your pet isn't enough. You need to talk it out. And therapy can help you learn to set boundaries, and it empowers you to be the best version of yourself. If you've been thinking about giving therapy a try, one fast way to get connected with a therapist is with BetterHelp. It's entirely online, so it's flexible for your schedule, and all it takes to get started is filling out a quick questionnaire that pairs you with a therapist who fits your needs. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/citycast today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/citycast.
It used to sell a lot of papers and keep hometown newspapers in the black. The Commanders, they're good. And they had this miraculous win last Sunday that has sort of kicked the bandwagon effect into overdrive. Julia, you were, I'm sure, watching closely.
So, it will shock you to know I was not watching closely. In fact, I got a text from our production assistant, Ash Durbin, saying, "Are you watching the commies?" or something to that effect. And I said, "No, I'm driving back from Pittsburgh. What's going on?" And he said, "Crazy throw by Jaden Daniels, quarterback of the Washington Commanders. I want you to listen to this call from the radio announcers because they go ballistic.
Bears have 8 deep, 4 of them at the goal line. They bring 3. Daniels backing up. He's just going to have to let one fly. Goes to the right side. Steps away from the defenders. Gives himself some time. Now steps up, fires. Heads towards the end zone. It is...
So if you're listening to that call and thinking, oh my God, what's happening? That play is a Hail Mary. The Commanders are down by 3 points against the Chicago Bears, against local boy done good, Caleb Williams, who was a Gonzaga graduate. #1 overall pick. Jayden Daniels was #2. And Jayden Daniels just hucks this thing towards the end zone. They tip it, and then it's caught by Noah Brown in the end zone. And FedEx just goes ballistic.
How far was this throw?
So he hucks this thing from the 35-yard line, Washington's 35-yard line, to basically like the goal line where it gets tipped.
Okay, so that's like 60 something.
That's like 65 yards. That's
That's
you're
crazy.
gunning that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I famously don't care about most sports. Definitely not football, and definitely not Washington football. But I, on Sunday night, opened up my phone, had a notification from Twitter that for some reason I opened, and saw that play and gasped. Like, even I, a
noted sports not watcher.
Yeah, noted sports noob, knew that this was a big deal, and also felt like a sense of pride about something that I normally care not at all about.
So now we're entering that stage, I guess, where like, I mean, if Jayden Daniels wants, he could be the pitch man for every, local car dealership and that sandwich restaurant and so on.
Where's his Eastern Motors campaign? I need his Eastern Motors campaign like we had that Clinton Portis Eastern Motors campaign. Come on, you know what I'm talking about, Mike.
Mm-hmm. Washington used to just go crazy for the team. It was a thing everyone could talk about, whoever they were. And it seems like it's back. I would have thought, it's been so long and technology has changed. So people who move here don't have to care about the team here. They can keep rooting for wherever they came from. But much to my surprise, like, it was sort of everywhere.
It's one of these things where, like, you really get to see sports kind of unite an area in a way that kind of few things can. And I know, Mike, like, you've covered the Washington football team or what they've looked like to some extent and what they do for the city for years. And, like, you've written, like, back in the days, where they played at RFK, where it's hallowed ground, like, people could put aside their differences and root for this football team. It was a thing that brought people together. And right, we've had the Snyder era and like the FedEx Field, thing where supposedly poop was flowing from the rafters. Like, did they like exercise all of these demons with that one throw and that one catch? Is that what we just witnessed, like a mass exorcism?
I feel like it's been building. I feel like it's been building because I already knew the name Jayden Daniels before Sunday. So at the very least, people were talking about this, rookie QB that's come in and is bringing the team success. I guess one of my questions is, like, is it all Jayden?
I think, like, there is a big flavoring of that. Like, I think Jayden Daniels, like, he might not just win, like, offensive rookie of the year. He might win, like, most valuable player in the league, which is a lot. But that said, like, they brought in a new coach, Dan Quinn. There's a new ownership group. This comes at a time when the Senate committee hearing for the RFK Stadium bill is scheduled to start at 9:30 a.m. on November 19th. Like, I think there's a bunch of different factors going in. I think they're, like, playing actually good football. They lost to the Ravens, who are, like, leading the league right now. But, like, they lost to one of the best teams. Like, it's possible that was a Super Bowl preview. That's wild. Like, we haven't been able to say that about the Commanders for, like, 25 plus years.
Did you bring up the RFK aspect there in connection with Jayden potentially getting MVP because you're saying that, like, his value to the team is so great that it could be changing the Commanders' reputation to the extent that it might mean that Senate approves the Commanders returning to RFK? Like, is that the chain?
Like we've been saying, like, on this pod, right? Winning solves a lot of problems in sports, right? Like, if Jayden Daniels is the guy that's causing the team to win, and then people all around the area are like, hey, man, we want the stadium downtown. and Mayor Bowser's been on this train, having a good sports team helps that cause, right? It's one thing when Dan Snyder is like, I want us to go to RFK or move us, and people don't want to like fork up the land. It's totally different when you have a team that is leading their division. It's totally different.
And just for anyone who's completely out of the loop, Dan Snyder was the old hated owner of the Commanders who sold it last year. There was actually a lot of hope that like Dan Snyder kind of leaving the team was going to signal the start of a turnaround. And I don't know, here we are.
Right. Might wind up costing taxpayers a lot of money if they build that stadium.
That's true. And we will be there to cover it if that happens.
Without an endorsement.
Who says you have to start New Year's resolutions in the new year? There is no time like the present to embark on a new goal, like learning a new language. The Alliance Française of Washington, D.C. offers language courses tailored to every level. The winter session starts on December 4th, and if you enroll by November 8th, you'll receive a $20 discount. So if you've ever dreamed of ordering your morning cafe in perfect French or discussing art and history with ease, now is your chance. But it's not just about the language courses. A membership with the Alliance Française of Washington, D.C. brings you into a vibrant community that celebrates all things French. You get exclusive access to cultural events, wine tastings, film screenings, and more. Visit www.francedc.org to start your journey. And don't forget, sign up by November 8th and you'll get $20 off tuition when you enroll.
Now, two pigeons bemoaning the fact you can stream DirecTV satellite-free.
These humans can stream all the top-rated national news channels on DirecTV, and now with no satellite dish.
This just in. Weather, sports, election coverage. DirecTV has it all, but something is missing. The satellite dish.
What are you doing?
I'm reporting the news. Back to you, Bob.
Here's some news. You're a buffoon.
Stream the top-rated national news channels. No satellite dish. Visit DirecTV.com. Internet required. Top-rated news based on 2023 Nielsen ratings.
Priyanka, you were into this story this week about this new technology being tested at DCA. Are you personally yourself a airport line cutter?
You've put me on the spot, and this is a public platform, but I'm going to be honest. I have, in the past, cut the line. It's just like, there are just so many boarding groups. Some of the airlines have like 8 or 9 boarding groups. And when you're standing there waiting and you're in boarding group 9 and it just seems like it's going to take forever and you've got like a lot of bags and potentially some food in your hand from a fast food place or whatever. Like, I don't know, who hasn't done it at least once in their life, just tried to board before your group. I can't be the only one. So they're testing this thing out at this new tech at DCA. They're also testing it out at 2 other airports. But at DCA, they're going to be rolling out this new technology that if you try to board before your boarding group, then at the actual spot where they scan it, it will audibly tell the gate attendant that someone's trying to cut. Like it will shamefully and audibly call you out. And then the gate attendant will tell you to go to the back of the line and wait for your boarding group. And it would be terribly embarrassing.
One thing I'm worried about is like, if you're one of these people that's in boarding group 9 and you try to like board in boarding group 4, 5 or whatever, and the flight attendant says, hey, dude, your ticket says you're boarding group 9. Get to the back of the line. Does this lead to like more confrontation and fights? Like, are we going to see flight attendants fighting customers to board?
The automated factor means that like you won't think like, oh, she only busted me for cheating because I am, a man or whatever. And it's like, nope, the machine does what the machine's going to do. My sense of travel is that like, you have no idea what the person on the next seat paid for their ticket, right? And it's so opaque, and there's all of these, tiers within tiers within tiers, and what date you bought the thing, and do you get special boarding status because of, what you spent on your airline credit card or your mileage, or because, one person's definition of like someone with special needs for mobility is different from another's, that everyone, this may be a metaphor for the country writ large, that everyone thinks that everyone else is getting away with something. And so that manifests in like a lack of respect for things like the weird line order, which is different in different airlines. So I don't know that the automated line cutter technology is really going to diffuse that.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, like now that I'm really thinking about it, the times that I have cut the line, it's usually because I'm on a flight where it seems like the overhead space is going to get filled up before I can get on the plane, and I have a short layover or something, and I'm worried that if they gate check my bag, I'm not going to be able to get it in time for my other flight. And so then I cut the line because I'm like, I need that sweet overhead space. I need the cabin space. And like, so this just once again plays into all the ways that airlines, like with overbooking and just other policies that they hold, make it really hard for the consumer to have a seamless travel experience.
I gotta say, I think that the idea of not checking is the root of all our unhappiness there.
I'm convinced.
Because otherwise, you would say, like, I'm going to stay in the terminal till the latest possible moment instead of like being seated for another 20 minutes. But you're rushing to get up there because you're worried there's going to be no precious overhead space for your thing.
I will say they've also done like scientific studies about like how, like what's the most efficient way to board a plane. And I think people get mad because like then you're trying to move in and out between people. And what they figured out is like outside in, but with like certain clustered groups together. So like if you have small kids, you all get to board in like a single aisle. But like outside, so like the window seats in is like the most efficient is what they found, with exceptions. So I don't know, airlines, let's go. Figure it out.
Priyanka, you better mend your ways before the next American Airlines flight out of DCA.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to fly other airlines, I guess.
It's that important to you. Hey, good to see you guys.
Good to see you too.
Good to see you.
And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Priyanka Tilve, Julia Karen, and Ash Durbin. Kayla Cote-Stemmerman wrote our fabulous newsletter, Hey DC, this week. And our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer, from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell the person next to you in line next time you are in a long line waiting for a plane? We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.